The Gulf Coast Growth Show is sponsored by Chevron Pasadena Refinery and is an extension of the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region, where our mission is to market and grow a vibrant regional economy. All right, guys. Hey, welcome back to the Gulf Coast Growth Show. I'm your host, Jason Lee, joined with my co-host, Zeke Smith.
What's up, Jason?
Glad to have you today. And we're excited to have the mayor of Friendswood, Mayor Mike Foreman, join us today. Mayor, great to see you.
Great to be here, Jason. Thanks for having me. Zeke, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And so it's fun anytime we get a local politician on, because it's real simple to narrow it down to what we're going to talk about today. We have our show is designed to help bring education not only to about industry, but also about the community in and of itself and all the different communities that make up this port region. And essentially, the Economic Alliance serves 5 different counties for 12 different cities, I think, collectively. So something like that. We have a lot of touch.
Check the stats on that real quick.
Yeah, Friendswood being one of them. And so just thankful to have the mayor joining us today. So why don't you give us a quick background and tell us a little bit about you, and then tell us a little bit about your city.
Well, great. It's great to be here. My background, I've been the mayor for about 5.5 years now. I was a city council member for 2 years before that. So I had a little bit of a introduction to what I was getting myself into when I ran for mayor in 2018. And, you say politician, I kind of flinch when you say that. I know, politicians are what give politics a bad name. I feel like I call myself a public servant because
there you go.
I don't get paid, for one thing. Most politicians, get paid, but small cities like Friendswood in Texas mostly have volunteer city councils and mayors.
Right.
And so I came to this region in 1998 when I got selected by the NASA Astronaut program. So that's why I moved to Friendswood. And I found Friendswood, fortunately. It was sort of strange because a friend of mine already lived in Friendswood and was telling me, hey, when you come here, look for a house in Friendswood. And my realtor just kept taking me everywhere on the east side of the Gulf Freeway.
Right.
League City, all those regions up there, Webster, all the areas on the other side of the freeway. And I kept telling her, hey, I want to see some houses in Friendswood. Before we make a decision, I want to see at least a house. And so finally she said, and I'm not going to mention her name because I don't want to give her, a hard time. But she said, okay, Mike, like the third day, she said, in the afternoon, I kept complaining. We hadn't seen anything in Friendswood. She said, Mike, jump in my car. You drive over there. While you're driving, I'm going to make some calls and find out what's available. And of course, that was in the key map days. There was no GPS. She found some addresses. We found the houses, found a house we love. And about 6 months later, I said, I had such a hard time getting you to take us to Friendswood. She said, Mike, I got to admit something to you. I didn't know where Friendswood was.
Never crossed the highway.
I'd only been a realtor here for about 2 years. I'd shown houses all up and down the other side of the freeway, but I'd never been to Friendswood. So thank you for showing me where Friendswood was and what a beautiful community it is. But so that's kind of a funny story how I ended up there. So glad that we ended up there. It was a great community to raise our kids, and I love it there. It's we've got a reputation for being a safe, clean, friendly community. Kind of a small town feel.
Nice. In
the 87th largest city in Texas. If you're quoting stats, like I like, you like to quote the stats, Jason. But anyway, that's how I got here. And
so, what's the day in the life of a mayor like? Right. So when you wake up, it's a volunteer job. So you got to get out of bed and get motivated to go do it. So talk to us about that.
Motivation's not a problem. I love it. I love doing this volunteer job. When I was a city council member, I think I spent about 6 hours a month at City Hall. I'd go to the meetings. I had some other duties as a city council member, liaison assignments with committees. So I thought, I know what I'm getting into when I turn over, and become mayor. Little did I know that now it takes me 30 to 40 hours a week, to do everything that I'm trying to do. And you said it, I'm a volunteer. I can set my own hours. It's rare that I will show up at City Hall before about 10:30 in the morning. Yeah. I like to get up and exercise, get that out of the way first, before I go do something. So I have my, routine in the morning, and rarely, sometimes they schedule a meeting for 8:30 and I say, wow, I didn't sign up for this. But sometimes you have to do it. And but I love it. And a typical day could be anything from, coming to Deer Park to shoot a podcast with you guys, or, going to one of the schools to make a presentation, or you name it, meetings with residents. Sometimes they want to come and meet with me. They think, mayor must run the show. Little do they know that, the city manager really runs the show.
Yeah.
When you have a volunteer mayor, you have a full-time city manager
Right.
who runs the day-to-day operations. So he's back in City Hall right now, making everything run smoothly today in Friendswood. And,
Nice.
I get to kind of blow and go, do whatever I want to do, show
Right.
up when I need to show up.
Nice.
And, it's important. We have a city
Note to
council
self,
for a
run
reason.
For mayor of Friendswood.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it's important that we have a city council. Of course, our charter says that the city council will hire the city manager and decide on his pay and things like that, and then also pass a budget, set a tax rate, and things like that we have to do yearly. But every month we have items on our city council agenda to discuss, and
Right.
sometimes there are zoning changes, things like that. So we do some preparing for those meetings, get ready, finding out what's going on.
Well, I will say this about Friendswood. It's been an attractive destination for a long time. I mean, homeowners are real proud to be there. If you drive down in that neck of the woods, the homes are gorgeous. And you said it's got its own personal feel. Like Friendswood
Sure.
is Friendswood. Like, I mean, you
Yes.
immediately know when you
Yeah.
get in there, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm in Friendswood
We
now.
joke about calling Pleasantville down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Right,
it's like a movie.
You hit it, Zeke.
And so, with that being said, there's got to be something that everybody's doing to continue to fight that fight, right, and continue to keep it that way.
Sure.
And I'm sure that's a big part of the role
Yeah.
and responsibility, because I know that the Friendswoodonians, that's right, yeah,
Friendswoodians.
Woodians, yeah, there you go, Woodians, are
Friends,
adamant
woodsmen
about
and
that.
women.
You don't,
Yeah, right.
and I actually remember during Harvey mucking a lot of houses down there,
We
and
did,
the community was so galvanized and just unified, and so it's
Sure.
just a wonderful place. I lived in Pearland for the last 12 years, so
Yeah. Well, you're close.
I would jump over to
You're like West
Friendswood
Friendswood.
off-
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, I was actually in Pearwood for like a
Yeah.
better term. So
Perfect.
yeah, so but what do you think it is about the city that makes it operate that way? Aside from
Well,
you.
besides,
Yeah.
despite the mayor,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
city
right.
continues to thrive. No,
That's a great headline.
Yeah, I think you said destination. I think, we're trying not to be a destination for people outside of Friendswood.
Right.
We Friendswoodians kind of like to have our Friendswood,
Yeah.
we can't roll up the sidewalks and close the doors at night, and say,
Yeah.
hey, nobody else. But we like to grow at the rate that we're growing. We like to, I talk to realtors, and I tell realtors what's going on so that they can advertise, hey, this is the great benefits of living in Friendswood. And we
Right.
attract those people that are looking for those same, ideals that we kind of
Right.
love.
Culture.
That's woven into the fabric of Friendswood. And I think that works great. Even businesses, we're doing a really good job, I believe, in attracting the companies that want to settle in Friendswood. And we found out probably 10 years ago, we have CEOs living in Friendswood that operate companies, big companies in Houston. And, our message to them was, why do you drive to Houston every day? Why don't you bring your company here? So now we're attracting big companies that bring 250 employees,
Nice.
in, and a lot of them say, hey, I'm not going to drive from Deer Park,
Right.
or somewhere. I'm
Right.
going to move to Friendswood. And so we're getting, the right people, the right companies, the right businesses to establish in Friendswood. And it keeps that sort of that feel that everybody believes, because everybody comes there for that. And so they
Great.
want to continue that. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy almost, when you're attracting those kind of people, they come there for that reason. So
That's fantastic.
yeah.
Now, do you find yourself, because of the amount of support everybody has to put into, I guess, the different regional things? I mean, you're plugged right in there next to 45, the freeway, Beltway. All of
Sure.
those things are like feeder systems and stuff. How often do you find yourself having to work with the other mayors of these local cities?
Well, I feel like I get to work with the other mayors in the region because it's great. These Friendswood doesn't have unique problems. We have regional problems, that we need to solve
Right.
together. And so I'm a member of the Bay Area Transportation Board. We're a member of Bay Area Houston Economic Partnership.
Great.
We're involved in a lot of things that take me outside of the city. a lot of my job as a mayor is to go to meetings with Sylvester Turner or, other people in this region and discuss these issues and say, hey, how can we kind of lock arms and fight this fight together?
Sure.
And, you'd love to have a champion like Sylvester Turner who, loves Friendswood and, wants to help, he understands, hey, he's the big dog obviously in the room and he can help us, Now, I don't agree politically with everything Sylvester does, but, in that kind of regional partnership, he is a great partner to have.
Well, I think it's important to state that because you mentioned the city manager earlier, and you're right. There are the operational people of operating the city, but the significant role of the mayor really is the unification of working with other mayors. And I wanted to make sure we share that story because so much of that happens through even this organization in and of itself is bringing together all the, Pearland, Baytown, Friendswood, and then going to the Harris County region and saying, hey, we need this over here in order for the port to be able to, for all this development coming down here because it all works in concert together.
Yeah.
Right.
And because Friendswood is partly in Harris County, we are members of the Harris County Mayor and Council Members Association. So we go to their meetings where we see everyone from Harris County. Same with Galveston County. We belong to that Galveston County Mayor and Council Association also. And we get to, once a month kind of rub elbows with the other folks in the region. And then, when I'm at the Clear Lake area Chamber of Commerce luncheon, or the League City, Chamber of Commerce, wherever I'm, getting a chance to talk to all those folks, say, how's it going? What'd you do about this? What do you think about this, what the state legislature is doing to us now, and that's a whole show that we could talk about, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
But, it's good to get ideas from other cities because, like I said, we don't have any original problems in Friendswood. Other cities have had these problems that they've gone through. And
so I got one question. So whenever like something comes down to a vote or anything, do you ever pull the astronaut card? Like, all the astronauts get to vote and then you could just do this and everyone else is kind of like, well, shoot, I'm not really an astronaut.
I'm proud of the fact that, we have so many astronauts living in Friendswood now that when I got there, there were a few living there, but more recently, like 2010 and on, newer astronauts started finding Friendswood because, they found this for the same reasons, the schools, the great community. And I'm very proud of how many current active astronauts we have. We have some retired astronauts like me, but we have about 10 current astronauts, two of which are assigned to this Artemis 2 mission next year. So that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. We talk a lot about politics without getting, one side or the other, but I think it reminds me to reinforce the message of voting local and your local politics, your local elections matter because they're really talking about regional issues and things that matter to you, your streets, your waste, your services, as opposed to getting so caught up in a presidential election or, a federal election. These matter. And not that you have to have the perfect person, but somebody who cares and wants to serve, to use your word, to serve in and be a representative for the city, I think is really important. So I think I took that out of Mike's story there of saying, hey, this is what I do. It's like, reinforces like this is really important to who you elect your city council and who your mayor and your city administrators, if you will, because that has way more impact.
Local government's the best government and it's the closest to the people and it's the most important.
It has the most impact to your day-to-day life.
Impact to Friendswood,
That's right.
I love it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We glossed over the astronaut thing. So we got to talk more about that. I mean, that's obviously the only thing that's really interesting about you, Mike. So no, just kidding. No. So you mentioned that. So tell the layman, myself included, how you got there. I think you mentioned before the show you were a naval aviator first, but tell us that. So you joined the Navy out of high school. Tell us that story. Get a little.
So I wanted to be an astronaut when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
So for a long time in my life, I was striving for this goal, to become an astronaut. And when I was 8 years old, growing up in Ohio, I don't know if most listeners won't know that there are more astronauts from Ohio than any other state. And so I get that question a lot. Why are there so many astronauts from Ohio? And I tell people, well, it's just a lot of people looking for work outside the state. But that's joking. Joking. We, for some reason, early in the space program, had 3 astronauts: John Glenn, Neil Armstrong, and Jim Lovell. who most of you listeners know as Tom Hanks from that movie Apollo 13, from Ohio.
From Ohio, that's right.
Early in the 60s, the news media in Ohio, the podcasts, they were all talking about space.
Right.
Well, there were no
Right.
podcasts, but they were talking about space all the time. And so I think a lot of Ohio astronauts, my generation, heard this, got inspired, and said, okay, what do I need to do to get to the space program? And so my decision, 8 or 9 years old, I decided, okay, I'm going to be a Navy pilot and a test pilot, and then I'll be an astronaut. And it was a pretty simple plan for a 9-year-old, to come up with. I went to the Naval Academy. I became a pilot. That part of it was pretty easy, but getting into test pilot school took me 8 applications before they accepted me. Getting to NASA took me 8 applications before I got in. So it was a lot of, just plodding away and continuing to work towards that goal and trying to change myself, improve myself somehow between applications. And
it's like, if an Annapolis grad takes 8 times, like who are they selecting on first ballot here?
Right.
Goodness gracious.
Smarter people.
Maybe. I mean, I guess.
Not better looking, but smarter.
Sure, certainly. Yeah.
So
there's a dual deal there.
Yeah,
handsome and smart to be an astronaut, right?
Exactly.
So, a lot of TV time.
Yeah. So
got it.
Anyway, it finally worked out for me, but it took a lot of perseverance and just hanging in there.
How long were you a naval pilot?
So I was actually, 30 years I was a Navy pilot, but
Wow.
for 19 years I was a pilot trying to get to NASA. So my first 19 years of my career, I just felt like, okay, my duties are as a Navy test pilot, but, my hobby is applying to NASA, and maybe this will pay off one day. And I just kept plugging away at it. So
what did you fly anything based out of, some Roswell or anything good or no?
No, nothing too exciting. I did get to fly a lot of different things. I was a test pilot school instructor, Navy test pilot school, and got to fly a lot. I could be flying gliders in the morning, the F-18 fighter jet in the afternoon as a flight instructor there, teaching other pilots how to become test pilots. So I got to fly, I've flown 50 something different types of aircraft, even the Goodyear blimp I flew one time. So interesting vehicles. Yes.
That is so cool.
F-18 was a lot of fun to fly though.
I bet. Okay. So you finally get the tap on the shoulder, you're going to NASA. And when you apply to NASA, it is to be an astronaut directly to be in space, correct?
It's the astronaut program that you're applying to, yes.
All right.
Or being rejected from, in my case, a lot of times.
All right. And so how many missions into space did you participate in? 2
space shuttle missions flying up to the International Space Station during the time when we were still building ISS.
Okay.
So in 2008 and 2009, I flew to the space station twice and did 5 spacewalks during that time. My primary duty going to space was to continue the assembly. So I would take my wrench, put my suit on, go outside, work for 6.5 or 7 hours, adding to the space station when we were still building it. So
wow,
that was a lot of cool.
Pilot the shuttle, or you?
No, I was a mission specialist astronaut.
Okay,
so
got it.
That's cool because I always wanted to do spacewalks. And with my background, I got selected as a mission specialist. We didn't let our pilot or our commander on the space shuttle mission do a spacewalk, which I thought was interesting. They were afraid, hey, these guys might go out on a spacewalk, get hurt, not be able to fly us home. So I always say, they just sent the expendable astronauts outside to do the spacewalk.
Right. Kept all the engineers and the pilots inside and through the.
Well, I'm an engineer.
And a pilot.
And a pilot. But I was one of the ones that got to go do the spacewalks, which was a thrill for me.
So, 50 different aircraft, all those different times, launching and taking off. And, I would imagine the first time you stepped into an aircraft, you got a little bubble guts, a little anxious when you're about to take off. What's it like that when you're about to take off and you're about to exit the atmosphere? What is that feeling like?
Well, that is a crazy feeling. Launching a space shuttle is different than anything you've ever done. I liken it to sort of a car wreck. Because I have been in my car, unfortunately, at a stop sign before when someone has plowed into the back of my car. When that happens, I don't know if it's happened to you, Jason or Zeke, you get thrown back into your seat very violently, right? And sometimes there's whiplash and you can actually be injured during that. Fortunately, I wasn't injured, but the space shuttle, when those solid rocket boosters ignited and you had that 7.5 million pounds of thrust hit you instantaneously, no sort of slowly throttling it up for you to, slowly accelerate. It's like, boom, this kick in the backside, like, whoa, man, what hit us?
Yeah.
And it's that 7.5 million pounds of thrust hit us. So
That's crazy.
It's so funny because on TV, it looks like it moves up so slow, right?
Yeah,
When
right.
it ignites, it just kind of
Yeah.
slowly creeps out, then it goes. But I'm
Well,
sure that thing
yeah.
lights. It's
I think a lot of people remember Saturn V during Apollo. I do as a kid, and that thing barely got off the launch pad. It was 7.5 million pounds of thrust also, but it was about a 6.5 or 7 million pound vehicle. So it barely had enough thrust to get
lift
it
off.
going. And the space shuttle was about a 4.5 million pound vehicle with all the fuel when it launched. So 4.5 million pounds with 7.5 million pounds hitting you. They told us we would be doing 120 miles an hour by the time we cleared the pad. So you get up there pretty
0 to
quick.
120 and
0 to
like
120
a couple
in
hundred feet.
couple hundred feet. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. That's
You
crazy.
get going quick.
That's crazy.
Little known fact that I want to plug just because I think this is hilarious. But you said you wanted to be an astronaut, little kid. My mom would be upset if I didn't mention. I also wanted to be an astronaut as a little kid, probably from 4 or 5 years old. But when I was home from space, I wanted to be a garbage man. That was my two
The two gigs.
trades. Yeah, because
right.
I loved riding on the side of a grocery cart, and like reaching off like they
Oh,
did
yeah, like
right
you
in the back
grab
of the truck.
stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I was going to be an Air Force pilot and then go and be in space. It fell a little short into the HR career.
And then,
but,
Well,
I'm
I'm glad
just-
you're here, Zeke.
thanks, appreciate that.
And I'm thinking, like, just for the audience, right? So, because I'm just imagining you're getting hit with the 7 million pounds of pressure. What does it feel like when you go through the moment of, okay, I'm out. So far we're gonna make it, right? Because there's probably some nervousness around. Are you going to survive this thing? And
I
then
always assumed I was going to survive.
yeah, and
I've
then
always felt pretty good about it.
fantastic. So then but then all of a sudden you're it's like blue skies, and then now you're in space.
Right.
Tell us about that first time when you experienced that.
You know, the amazing thing about being in space is the views that we have back at Earth. You know, and you have all seen pictures that we take from space. You know what we're seeing, but when you see it with your own eyes, it just blows you away. I mean, it's amazing. You know, I'm a believer. You know, I believe in a higher power. When I saw the Earth from space, it just made my belief stronger.
Wow.
I said, when I look back at the Earth and I can basically cover the Earth with my hand, looking out the window, and think everybody that I've ever met, everything I've ever learned is back down there on that, blue marble. It just blows you away. So,
and you get,
wow.
I mean, you orbit the Earth pretty quickly, so you get to see you can see Texas several
Yeah.
times, right?
every
You go-
90 minutes we're going over, making an orbit. So
Wow.
45 minutes of darkness, 45 minutes of sunlight, then go back into
so
sunrise.
you're crossing
sunset,
over home every hour and a
sunrise.
half. Okay.
Well, yeah, we cross over all different parts of,
Right,
of the world as it rotates underneath us. And,
Sure.
That's crazy.
yeah.
I don't know. You just want to try to live through it, but you just know I know we're all disappointed. I'm disappointed.
Well, now folks are going, man. It's private space
Yeah.
rides now.
Yeah,
You
right,
can go do
right.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go do it.
Note to self.
Yeah. 55 million.
I think the
Sign
guy,
up.
Ben
Run from Air
Hinton,
Friendswood,
and go to space.
fly to space. There
Yeah,
we go.
there we
All
go.
right, done. Yep.
Yep.
I just need to.
Die happy.
I like that you're
have-
actually writing these
Yeah,
things down.
yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I'm a little
happy.
late getting to my goals. I wish I would have started at
8 years
'cause then
old,
maybe I
yeah.
could have
Is
been.
there, well, let me ask you, for the space shuttle or now any other vehicle, is there a height requirement to get on the
Wow.
ride to space? Because I
Okay.
don't, let me check that
Okay.
real
We
quick.
started
I
with
don't-
short jokes and then carried on, so that's good. Hey, Mayor,
You're fine, Jason. You're fine. You're the perfect height.
That's
I
right.
am the perfect
You fit right in that small little capsule just right.
for those space shuttles in front of the grocery store.
That's right.
75 cents I can ride
That's
all
right.
day.
That's right.
So, Mayor, it's been great having you on today.
Really fun.
Phenomenal guest. Fun to just share the story. And you got a great city. It's one of the safest, one of the cleanest, and just a great overall place to be. And I couldn't think of a better guy to be representing it. So,
Well, thank you very much. I'm proud and honored to be the mayor, and I hope to do it. Hope I can get reelected next year and do it another 3 years.
there you go.
And
Well, we'll wrap up with that. And for those that are listening, I think it's an inspirational story because you're always telling your kids you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up. Mayor Foreman did it. He actually said, "Hey, I'm going to be an astronaut," and that's what he went and did. So I'm going to let my daughter hear this one because I think it's really one of those true stories of like, hey, whatever you decide you're going to do, you can go do. And so the work ethic, the perseverance, the things that just those examples of getting rejected so many times. I mean, that could be a book, right? And so what a great episode of perseverance and how to do that. Mary, you've been great. For our audience, we're going to continue to try to bring you great content like that, driven around the community, driven around our region. The way it all works in concert together, it just does stuff, from our episodes around construction to all the way here around having astronauts on the show. They're a phenomenal group of people that make up this region to get it all done. And our show's to help try to tell that story. So Zeke, thanks for being a part of the show.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, glad to have you. And guys, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to go to the Economic Alliance Houston Port Region website and subscribe to our channels. And let's pay it forward by sharing the good news of what's happening in our region by passing this episode to somebody you know.